Hello everyone, it is Bihan here, and today I'm going to be breaking down the project file for my song Perfect Myth. This is the opening track on my latest album. If you haven't heard it, go and listen to it. Link's going to be in the description, but if you have, you should be well familiar with this song, this big progressive monster. I'm just going to go through how I produced it, a little bit of how I wrote it, and hopefully just by looking at my process, you can add some of these tips and ideas to your own process and just maybe learn one or two things. I think these kind of breakdown videos, I watch a load of them myself, and I think they can be really helpful, even if, you don't learn anything new specifically. It shows you a little bit of a deep dive into, like, the arrangement of an Indietronica song like this, because, I don't think there are too many dedicated tutorials for Indietronica specifically as a genre. So let me know if you enjoy this kind of format, and if you want another of my songs broken down, you can leave a comment and I'll try and get to it. But yeah, this is a pretty it's a big looking project file. When you get down to it, there's not like a crazy amount going on. We're gonna start out with these pianos here, which are Shearwater felt pianos. Love this, love this felt piano sound. I use it in like so many songs. There's a little bit of, like, nice fat distortion on them that give them that like lo-fi sheen, and there's like a layer of Keyzone Classic under them that's, I think, just like basically reverb. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just like nothing. And then, yeah, it's layered with, we just got some like field noise here, and where it really starts to get layered is you have these string sections. You know, we're shooting for drama in this opening section. I wanted something big, reflective. Reflective was always the idea that I built this track on. So we've got some string sections here. These are all, I believe, Labs cello moods, which is free. And sounds incredible, as you can tell. I think this one might be a BBC Symphony Orchestra as the lead viol. Yeah, it's a bit more. You can already tell that one's like a little bit more fake sounding, but what have you. It works as a big, dense string arrangement. And then, because again, we're going for big epicness, I'm going to break down the drums a little bit. We have taikos, and we have... Oh, that's a lot of reverb on that because I haven't told the comp. Reverb and tambourines and taikos, which to me, big orchestral drums are like your instant key into big, massive, spacious atmospheres. Reverb on the drums, I mean, obviously it's a nightmare to mix, but that's how you get things sounding epic. That's how you go for massiveness. I mean, if I can take a look, it's actually just some reverb on the shaker raw, the tambo. And then there's maybe a convolver. I don't know. Let me take a look. No, it's actually drums don't actually have any reverb on them specifically. You've just got the actual recording of the taiko, which is very loud and reverberant. And yeah, there's a lot of slowly building layers, because this sort of opening section is like the whole first minute and a half of the track. So I just automate in some things very slowly. So we've got this the pluck, which I think is just a really simple, like, yeah, it's 3x oscillator, so it's basically just maybe a square wave. We've got this one, which the decay goes off on, I think, over time. A bit of crush. Let's take a look at that. It's called Blap Blap in the project file. Yeah, Crush has some cool features on it, but this there's like the bit crushing is being modulated on it, which gives it that sort of like rhythmic pulse to it. A lot of the time, it's a cool sound on its own, but without that, yeah, it doesn't have that waviness to it. We're sort of, I guess that's topically in the song with By the River. You want that sort of like slow pulse in and out, and that's what the automation gives it. And again, upping the delay over time is a classic EDM trick. But it just slowly sustains the synth the longer you go, and gives it that sense of progression. I don't know what this is. Should we find out? Oh, that's the bass. Okay, yeah, so bass is just a sub there. And like rotating xylophone sort of sound. Again, that's sort of like that like off rhythm was nice. It's sort of like a contrast to the very straight pianos, I thought. And then we've got a little lead sound. Yeah, very guitar sounding lead. I think it's maybe in yeah, there's a destructor on that, so nice distortion, and a little choir layer too. And that's the intro. Obviously, we've got some layers of vocals, but I'll talk about those in a little bit. And again, I was just going for something really ruminating, really reflective, slow building, slowly pulsating, and yeah, a fair bit of reverb, but it's not crazy. It's not drowning. It's not completely drowning. Let's go ahead. I've obviously got this little bit here, which is just guitars and pianos. And yeah, a little automation of the load in of the river sample again. And then we get our first impact. And here is where the drums, I think, start to get a lot more interesting. I think the drums as a whole are like one of the most interesting parts of this track. So let's go ahead. I mean, I'll start up by just literally soloing the kick and the snare, so you can hear what the actual like what the core of this drum groove is. And that's turn off the parallel compression again. Very, very dry, very basic. It's just so. But that was the groove I started with, right? And I think the key thing about this track is how context shapes the rhythm of things, if that makes any sort of sense. So look, obviously that's the core rhythm of it, but it's pretty, it's very straight. And then I layered the drums very slowly, and added all these different bits of it. And all of a sudden, on its own, it sounds like yacht rock. It sounds like Steely Dan or something like that. You know, it's groovy. We're by the fucking Copacabana or something. But those tiny little bits of like extra rhythmic detail really go such a long way. I mean, you've just got to experiment with drum layering, not just layering the actual sounds themselves, but just layering tiny like micro grooves and just letting it take its own shape. And obviously that on its own, that doesn't really sound like the song itself. But then you start to layer. I think the other key driving rhythmic force is the acoustic guitars. And now all of a sudden, that's the perfect myth groove. That's what it sounds like. That's the song at its core. But you wouldn't get that just, I don't know, at that very basic kick and snare groove. So yeah, breaking down. Obviously the drums aren't crazy layered, but we've got this kind of weird tom thing here, which I think is cool. And then the tam shaker. Not sure where they're from, but that one's the other one's from a hit kit, but yeah. Got some of these bits coming back from earlier. Bass is got like a flex. There's a flex preset in there, I'm pretty sure, which is FL Studio stock, and that's a great one. I automate the again. We're talking about that sort of flowing movement. I automate the distortion on the bass over the course of the bar just to give it a little bit of swell. I don't think I actually have it side chained. No, it's probably side chained in some way, but that. Instead of going for the very sort of ducking feel, we're just going for more of a slow pulsate. And then I've already talked about these in a reel, so if you want to check that out, or, I'll leave a link to that as well. But we've got these bells, which have the very fantastical delay on them, where basically, in a nutshell, you're automating the time on the delay, and it gives you that very fancy woo sound, so we can play it on its own. Yeah. This lead again comes back. We've heard this in the intro, and then the guitars are pretty much just noise. Like got Neuralamp modeler on there, guitar rig on one of them, Neuralamp modeler there. Yeah, basically the best. It's free, and it's basically the best way to model. It lets you take screenshots, quote unquote screenshots of other people's gear, and you get you put it into the thing, and bam. So we've got this big muff sound. The acoustic guitars, which are very big, very tight, very compressed. They're on a steel string, which I think maybe is one of the more underrated ways, like the actual choice of acoustic guitar. The steel string so bright and so tight that a lot of the times it can be overbearing. For something like this is what you want. And yeah, it's OTT on there. A lot of saturation. Well, only a little bit actually. And then yeah, it's as a whole. The vocals are not too heavily layered on this verse. I guess we'll start breaking these down now. I don't know how. They don't sound. They're fine actually. They're not like crazy bad. Yeah, so we've got a layer of choir here, which is from Synth V. I think I don't know if it's Gumi or not, but yeah, they at the time I was making the song, they just added like a feature that that lets you have like multiple singers playing at the same time, and I was like, that would make a cool little addition to the choir. And it does add that little like airiness to the choir that I don't have in my voice. So it's yeah, there's quite a lot of reverb on this choir, and we're gonna load. Please load. Please load. Okay. Yeah, it's a 3-part harmony. That's what it is. The only thing I tend to do is my vocals tend to have like 3-part harmonies, but this is a proper like yeah, it's I think it's there might be one more that I'm forgetting, but it's that a lot of the time density in like those sort of choir sections you get just from adding more layers singing different things rather than adding more layers of the same thing. It can be it's something you just sort of have to experiment with really. I think I found it eventually here. I was kicking myself with this vocal mix. It took me so long, and I'm still not like perfectly satisfied with that how I did the vocals, but oh well. I think they sound pretty good. Yeah, that's basically the second breakdown. Let's get into the tempo change, which is where things start getting annoying from a logistics point of view, because I have to remember to mute the tempo automation. After searching, we did really crank up the parallel compression on the drums at last here, and rhythmically, I think like structurally, it's very similar to the sounds that we have in the previous section, except there's just some more layering. So let's play it through. I forgot to fucking turn on the tempo, of course. Ding ding. Very tonal right there. It sounds a bit like weird, but yeah, I did actually add. Now I remember that I did add a tiny little like extra, like a sort of post to the kick, because it was just a bit like too clicky and short on its own. So as you can tell, I faded in the transient. So I'm keeping the transient of the original kick, but adding the afters of this extra kick here. So it sounds a lot bigger, a lot fatter. Look at the layer on the snare, obviously. It's a Lindrum snare originally, which I guess is kind of cool. And aside from that, there's like, what I do love is this bit does kind of feel like it has those weird AOR guitars, like the big epic kind of Aerosmithy or whatever, but they're really not that big in reality. It feels much more guitar driven than it is, but again, I think it's just the whole rhythmic context of the track that makes it feel so boom 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 boom, and sort of it simulates the effect of a very big guitar, because that's the tape player chugging riff like that, without actually focusing on it too hard. Because we've got the some little saws there, big pads. This lead is back again, and it's that big distortion. And there's this lead, which it's the more recognizable one. A lot of distortion on there. I had to put this like loads of like weird, terrifying EQs to make it not sound like completely like ear destroying. But that one, if I take a look at the Serum preset, has Chaos 1, which I talked about before. Gives you that big fuzzy like cheerleader leady sound. I mean, if I turn down the output, all of a sudden it's like, well, it actually still sounds quite distorted, but yeah, and there's a little that the ring mod actually makes more difference than I thought with the little mix automation there. A lot of noise on that one, and it's the big epic breakdown moment. We've got some sort of like little perfect fifth sort of thing going on here. It's a lot of the the drama in the song is created by these tiny little like chromatic movements. Obviously, we're in E flat, which is I love E flat. I love E flat until the end of my life. Yeah, and the third here, the G6, does a lot of heavy lifting when sort of carrying the tension of the melody. But yeah, generally speaking, the breakdown there's not like too much to break down about it, as crazy as it sounds. I mean, I like this pluck a lot. It sounds like something from a video game. I don't know what it is. But it's some really, really short envelope changes on that make it, and then this, the distortion that gives it that little bit of extra width. Sometimes just a nice little ARP in the background can make all the difference. Yeah, generally that's the breakdown covered. Let's get into the very end of this track, because I think it's one of the more like it's more interesting from an arrangement point of view. In that we have quite a simple chord progression. Like, I wanted this final bit to feel just like the big anthemic release. If I start with just the chords. What we basically have is like a really, really big poppy major progression. I mean, it's all major chords. I think it's what is it? 1, 5, 1, 4, maybe? No, 1. I think it's 1, 4, 1, 5. Sorry. That only sounds more emotional because the extensions on the chords. You know, we've got some like little. A lot of the time, you just gotta sort of feel your way around these and just see. But you know that like ninth there, it just adds that little bit of like sadness and tension to what is otherwise a really big anthemic chord progression. A lot of the time that just comes by testing and writing different things. But yeah, this is like structurally and like chord wise, the song is really, really, really simple. It's just carried by big fancy extensions and sevenths on the chords. Like, you know, again, it's the 4 and the 5 just kicking it off, but in weird phrasings. And yeah, similarly in the melody, it's carried by that big perfect fifth, which is the anthemic part. Let's play through a little bit. The ground would swallow me whole. My perfect myth never came. Let's find an instrument that I can play that on. Oh, I've got it here actually. Dun, dun, dun. Again, we've got this dive here for the perfect fifth onto the tonic, and then you have that little movement onto the 3, which is that whole that third there, that G. It's like that is the keynote of the melody, and that's where all the tension and excitement is in it. I just use quite a lot of, like, again, another big sort of anthemic lead tension building thing is using the 7th, which we've got the D6 there, and just these little chromatic movements between it feel so. I can't really. I'm not gonna act like I know. I can explain scientifically why that 7th works so well, but it just does. Always love that if you're writing a big crazy melody like that, anchoring it around that 7th or that 3rd can be so cathartic. And yeah, drum wise, we're pretty similar place to where we were on the breakdown. I think there maybe is another layer of snare on this final bit. Let's take a look. No, it's there is a layer of snare that comes back from earlier, that synthwave snare. Yeah, very tight drums. Did originally have like a different groove switch up, because obviously on this breakdown here you have the boom, boom, that boom, 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 boom. That was originally going to be the entire like groove for the ending, but I thought it just maybe polluted it a bit too much. Felt a bit too like there was a bit too much going on for that to work, right? But yeah, obviously carried by that ride again, really gives it that sort of that danceable feel. Got some of these synths that you might recognize from earlier. Again, just playing little arpeggiate patterns. Some bass. You can hear that anthemic chord progression really coming through on that bass line. that lead, the bells, everything comes back. Where you're hearing things that you recognize at this point. I think this, yeah, it's mainly just acoustic guitars at this very ending. Ooh, that is not quantized at all. And the acoustic, maybe because the rhythm is a bit straighter, the acoustic doesn't do so much heavy lifting now, but it still needs to be there, because otherwise, like, without it, the mix just feels very, very empty. I mean, if you're looking at things to fill space, the acoustic guitar fills space like nothing else. Yeah, it's a great tool for that. And that piano also does quite a bit as well. And that's like the instrumental for the climax. Let's play some of the vocals. Oh, and let me go ahead and fix the tempo too before I just play some. Ooh, a lot of mouth noises. There's some like really, really rough takes in here. I was going to show off this one. There's just one falsetto take, which I think is in here. Yeah. Ooh! Ooh! Ooh, ooh. Netspend really got so creative sampling Elementor's boot up. No. When you're stacking vocals like this, you can have some really terrible takes in there. But with some, as long as you have it pitch corrected, the actual like tonal quality of the take is generally not really gonna matter. It's all just being a part of a huge cog in a huge machine. And obviously no one's ever gonna hear that individual take, they're just gonna hear the sort of textural impact that it has. So yeah. Let's see, we've got some kind of rough takes in there, but it's big. They're all panned in very different directions. A lot of compression, very, very heavy compression. And then again, really, the like background vocals are really, really clearly auto-tuned on here, but I think they sound fine in the final mix just because they're such a textural feature and not a core that you're actually hearing. And we've got another layer of choir here from simply, you can hear it in the distance. Never can. Yeah, it's actually it's one of the last songs that I wrote for the album, funny enough. But it was, it's narratively it's very much the opening track. And yeah, I mean, generally wise, that's kind of the song. It's not the most complicated arrangement ever. I think maybe when you're mixing a song like this, and just building one from scratch, you often end up in this situation, which I ended up in, where you get a very Jenga-like mix. Like, you take one piece out, and all of a sudden, everything falls apart. But that is fine. I know it makes things a lot harder, but a lot of the time you just do need to keep adding these layers until everything feels right, feels complete. Those tiny little bits of micro groove, those the big space fillers, sort of like bits of groove in the acoustic guitar, all that kind of thing. It all comes together very slowly. And if I had to give any specific tips for making things like this, I don't know. Keep it simple at first. Start with the piano progression. Start with whatever your chord progression is, and build it slowly off that. Don't try to build out an entire section. Have that skeleton, and then turn it into a layer cake over time, rather than having one slice of the cake and then trying to make the rest of the cake from that slice. You know what I mean? Because if you just have a 30-second intro and you've made like hundreds of layers on that, how are you gonna develop the song into something more weird and progressive? Because obviously the song takes a lot of like U-turns structural wise, but I'm still reusing material that I've already used earlier, so it still fits in the context of the song, rather than having to like build everything from scratch again, because I built it out all slowly over time. If that makes any sort of sense, if that's remotely helpful information, I don't know, but that's how I would work, workflow wise. And so yeah, that is Perfect Myth. I mean, obviously there's a couple of like tiny samples in here, which if you know, you know. But the song, again, it is 83 tracks, and there's a lot of automation. There's like a fair bit of automation, but it's mostly it's like past tracks, like mostly vocals. It's not a crazy complicated concept like project for a song that feels crazy complicated in in reality. I don't know. I hope this was sort of remotely useful. As you can tell, new house, new crib, new face, all this sort of thing going on. All things are crazy, but I do want to do some more videos like this, long form ones, short form ones. Share some sauce because we're not gatekeeping. It's 2026. You can steal every bit of fucking secret sauce that I have. Like, don't worry about it. We're gonna make great things together as a community. But yeah, let me know what you thought of this sort of format and songs or things you want to see me break down next. I can do more specific sound design tutorials. I can break down the people's songs, break down the mixing more in more detail. I don't know, whatever you want to hear. But I really thank you for showing up and I hope that you learned something today. Thank you very much.